to my laptop. Thank you, George. This is the Advancing Human Rights Issue Committee, March 24th, 8:02 p.m. We are starting. We do have quorum. Quorum is 5 branches or 5 different cities. We do have quorum. We will begin with the check-in, and you have 1 minute for the check-in. So George, time me now. I am Teresa Elamine. I am the outgoing, hopefully, AHR committee chair. I'm also organizer of the Fannie Lou Hamer branch. I am organizer initiating of the Women in Conflict Zones webinar, which was held on March 19th, and you'll hear it's a much longer process. I'm also the founder of the Southern Anti-Racism Network, and I am the board chair. I will pass it to Joan Goddard.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I'm in the San Jose branch of WILF in the southern San Francisco Bay Area, and glad to be here today, and I'll pass it along. Are we supposed to say to whom? Julie, you're next on my screen. You're not muted. Woo!
Well, there are two Julies. So which Julie do you mean? There's Julie Cavalcante and there's Julie Leak. Which Julie?
She's right here.
There are two Julies.
Okay, so
two Julies.
My name is Julie Kabukani. Hi, John, and I'm a member of the WILF Boston branch, and I'm also a nominee for the AHR committee.
Well, everyone needs to mute themselves who is not talking. I hear background noise. So, Julie Kabukani, would you please pass it to someone?
I'm going to pass it on to Julie Leak.
I'm Julie Leak, and I'm from the DMV branch.
Please pass it on, Julie.
Oh, and I'll pass it on to Michael.
Hi, yes, my name is Michael Polito from the Boston branch. Glad to be here. Thank you. Check.
Pass it on, Michael.
Oh, my apologies. I'll pass it on to Dr. Amina Pilgrim.
Thank you. I'll come on screen. Good evening, everybody. Amina Pilgrim, also from the Boston branch, and happy to be here. Thank you.
Please pass it on to someone, Amina.
Hi, sorry about that. I think I'll pass it to Philip Cole.
Thank you. I am a member of the San Francisco branch, and I'll pass it on to Mary White.
Good evening. I'm Mary White from the Triangle branch. I'm happy to be here. I'm just getting here, so someone needs to assist me in passing it if there's anyone else to pass it to.
George, go ahead. Please assist Mary White.
Mary, Sheila, and Gloria, and I haven't gone. And Diane.
Well, just one person. George. Well, I'll just call Diane Blay. And then Diane Blay, you pass it on. Okay.
I'll try. Hi, everyone. I'm Diane Blay. I just got on the call, although I tried to get, I logged into it half an hour ago. But anyway, Diane Blay, I'm in the Jane Addams branch in Fairfax, Virginia, and I guess I'll pass it on to Gloria.
Hi, I'm Gloria McMillan. Oh, I didn't uncover my my visual. Hi, Gloria McMillan at the Tucson branch, and having a good day. Thank you.
Pass it on, Gloria.
Oh, pass it on. I don't know who's already spoken because I just got on. So pick somebody.
I'll just go. This is Sheila Harper from the Philadelphia Wilf Branch.
Sheila, you've been on for a while. Can you pass it on to George or someone who hasn't gone yet?
I actually just did get on, I think, when the other Julie was speaking. So I don't know. George,
I'm the
I'll
only
pass it
one
on
who
to
hasn't
George.
gone.
Okay, George, I'll
Friday.
call you. Good.
Actually, I haven't gone either.
Darian
Oh yeah,
hasn't
I
gone.
didn't see you there.
Come on, George.
Okay, go ahead, Darian.
Oh, okay. Hi, folks. I'm Darian DeLue in the Sacramento branch in Sacramento, California.
Okay,
And
and
now,
finally,
George.
George Friday, Southern Piedmont Branch, Shelby, North Carolina.
Wonderful. George, would you please put up the agenda? And while you're putting up the agenda, George, I will explain that each of the items on the agenda, if there are speakers, the speaker will have 5 minutes. Oh, I can barely see that because I'm still using my phone. George, what's the first item on the agenda after the check-in?
Women in Conflict Zones Review.
Well, I will do a 5-minute presentation and we'll open it up for 2-minute rounds.
Excuse me. Do we get to have any comments on the agenda?
No. The agenda is set. Please do not be disruptive, Darian.
I believe we'll need additional time for the AHR leadership selection. Thank you.
Please mute Darian until she put your hand down, Darian, and when you want to speak in an appropriate time, then you'll be called on. As I was explaining, the agenda is set. We will have plenty of time for the AHR leadership change. That is why there's a short agenda prior to that. The Women in Conflict Zones item is simply to report that the 5 sponsoring organizations, Code Pink, the Convention for Pan-Africanism and Progress, the International Peace Bureau, the Southern Anti-Racism Network, and World Beyond War will meet on Wednesday at noon. George and I will be representing the Southern Anti-Racism Network. It's unclear about Code Pink. If you know, George, you should say. The International Peace Bureau will be represented by Sean Connor, who's the director based in Germany, and Michelle, who is one of their leadership. And the Convention for Pan-Africanism and Progress will be represented by 3 people, Kofi Panaki and Yanaka Curvey, professor, doctor, and our very own Lucy Murphy of the DMV branch. She's a part of the CPP, and she just acknowledged that she would be at the meeting at noon on Wednesday, March 26th. For World Beyond War, we will have Greta Zaro, the director of organizing, and hopefully David Swanson, who's the overall CEO director of World Beyond War. So we have agreed that the webinar needs to be much more. So what we will be discussing on Wednesday, March 26th, is the evaluation, which will include all of the speakers. That means Julie Kabukani will be included in that next level of discussion about where do we go from here. There have already been requests for material support from Gaza. I am proposing a fundraising festival in August of 2026 to raise money for the women and children dealing with conflict in Gaza, as well as the women and children in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Those will be our two priorities if this proposal for fundraising is approved. And
Oh,
please,
Teresa, why do we have to listen to?
I need people to mute themselves. George, please mute everybody until they raise their hands and can be recognized to speak. Because, George, you should have been timing me for the 5 minutes. So I am going to
3
assume
minutes. You used 3 minutes.
Well, I will yield the 2 minutes because I have said enough. So we need to see a show of hands of anybody who wants to speak now. Darian DeLu and then Sheila Harper. You have 2 minutes. George, be sure to time them. Darian DeLu on the topic of women in conflict zones.
If you didn't specify, Teresa, are you saying that the fundraising you're suggesting is for AHR to sponsor?
No. The fundraiser will be cultural artists in the DMV area. There are several choruses, and I will be going to DC in April to talk with the leadership of the DC Labor Chorus, of the Black Workers Chorus, which Lucy Murphy leads. And there's a third WILF member who leads a chorus in Baltimore. These are people I've worked with over the years. So we will be inviting people like Bev Grant, Cy Khan, and possibly Bob Dylan, because these are people who have those relationships. So the festival will be in DC in August of 2026. That's about 18 months away, I think. So it is not an AHR meeting. This is an event or proposal. This is on the topic of the historic women in conflict zones, which was very much a WILF event because there were at least 4, if not 5 speakers who were members of WILF. Reem Abbas, Julie Kabukani, Shireen Jurdy, and Hanan Awad. Those were the speakers who clearly identified as WILF members. The woman in Cameroon, Cyril, she may also be a WILF member. But women in conflict zones reached out to WILF International, which is why the next steps will continue to have the leadership of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom as we continue to celebrate 110 years. I hope that answers your question, Darian. So Sheila Harper, your hand is up.
Yes, I was just wondering, while I was up at the UN in New York, a couple weeks ago, I actually went to a lot of the women in conflict zone sessions. And I was just wondering if I'm able to listen in on Wednesday evening, because of course, gender-based violence is my focus, and women in, it's always been my
focus. Cut to the chase, the answer is no. The meeting is at 12 noon Eastern time, and it is strictly for the sponsoring organizations. So the 5 organizations that I mentioned, they're sending at least 2 representatives. In the case of the Convention for Pan-Africanism and Progress, they may have 3 representatives, but it's unclear how many representatives Code Pink would have. And George, since you recruited Code Pink, you need to check with Donica. I know this is Ramadan for her, so she may be not so much paying attention since the fasting is so difficult during the day, and she's eating now until the morning comes. So you need to communicate with Donica to see if maybe Medea Benjamin can join us on Wednesday, because this is a long-term strategic project. So we need the real leadership of the organizations, the 5 sponsors, to show up. Are there any more questions on the issue of women in conflict zones webinar follow-up? George, do you see any hands?
I do not.
Well, let's.
Oh, Darian's hand is up.
Again. Okay, Darian, you have used at least one of your 2 minutes, so you have 1 minute.
Thank you. I was wondering why it is that since AHR is a WILF US subcommittee, and since WILF US did not co-sponsor this event, why are we talking about it in AHR?
Because the incoming co-chair is associated with a conflict zone, and she is one of the leaders of the next phase of this, and that is Julie Kabukani. If you had been at the Women in Conflict Zones webinar, you would have seen how brilliant she was, because there was some pushback from the other sponsors because Julie is based in the US, and I assured them that she is very much still connected to the DRC. That is why. It is because of Julie Kabukani and the fact that I and George Friday, 3 WILF members who are of African descent in this UN decade where recognition, justice, and development is called for us. So I hope you can understand that using the lens of anti-racism and ending white supremacy and colonial thinking. Thank you for asking the question, Darian Delu. So George, the next item on the agenda, if I remember correctly, is the Democratic Republic of Congo working group that whatever happens with this transition, we approve Julie Kabukani leading that working group. And Julie is prepared to do a 5-minute presentation on her perspective of what that working group will do. Julie Kabukani, you have the floor, 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify about the question that Darian asked. If we are talking about the DRC and other countries of Africa and why we should be involved, we are US citizens originally from Africa, and we are very much involved in what is happening in our country of origin. So this is one of the reasons that we, as members of the diaspora, would like to have a say. We want to be active in finding a solution of mineral-fueled wars in Africa. Now, if you will allow me, I would like to do a short PowerPoint presentation on the working group on mineral-fueled wars in Africa. Is it possible for me to share my screen?
George,
I'm doing now what I need to do so you can share your screen.
Make her a co-host, and remember, you only have 5 minutes, and you've used some of that time already, Julie. You will be stopped at 5
Just a
minutes.
few slides.
Thank you.
Okay, Julie. I'll restart the timer now.
Do not restart the timer.
All right. Can you see my slides? So I'm planning to start this AHR working group on mineral fueled wars in Africa. The mission statement of that group is to investigate and expose the global systems fueling wars across Africa. We want to advocate for ethical, demilitarized resource economies, and we center feminist anti-colonial perspectives in conflict resolution. Now, I want to talk about the hidden war economy. Modern tech industries depend on conflict minerals, cobalt, coltan, gold, lithium. Wars in Africa are prolonged or manufactured to exploit Africa's mineral wealth. Proxy wars involve multinationals, corrupt African leaders, and some foreign governments. The current conflict in Africa linked to resource exploitation. This is happening in the DRC, which is rich in several minerals, especially coltan, cobalt, diamonds, and gold. Wars in Sudan, South Sudan, they are rich in oil and gold. Wars in the Sahel, which comprises the country of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, which is rich in uranium and gold. War in Mozambique, rich in natural gas. War in the Central African Republic, rich in diamonds and gold.
2 minutes left.
Oh, okay. Nigeria and Cameroon, oil and conflict mineral. So what is the objective of the working group? We want to research and map mineral-fueled conflicts, advocate for strong legislation and corporate accountability, support African grassroots peace movement, educate the public through campaigns and media, ground actions in feminist and anti-colonial framework. What will be the structure? The working group is open to the membership within WILF. There will be 2 co-facilitators for coordination. We will hold monthly meetings on the first Saturday of the month. We will be reporting to the AHR committee, and we will partner with African organizations and activists within the United States and across the world. The initial 6-month goals are to publish a briefing paper on resource wars in Africa, organize a webinar with African activists, draft
Julie, I believe your time is up.
I'm almost done. Draft US policy recommendations, launch a digital awareness campaign, and begin mapping project of conflicts and cooperation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julie. This being intended as an AHR working group, there has to be some clarity among who the members of the working group are at this point. So my question to you, Julie, is who are the members that have already signed on to this working group so far?
I haven't started recruiting members yet. I wanted to get the confirmation that I can start it, but I'm already making some contacts in the Boston area with some African nonprofits. And we will also have some speakers from Africa that could join from time to time. It's going to be monthly meetings and some members within WILF that are interested in the topic. Can't hear you, Teresa. You are muted.
I'm sorry. So members of the working group must be members of the U.S. section of WILF. You can invite in speakers from outside, but the actual working group has to be members of the U.S. section of WILF. And I would be happy to join your working group as an AHR member. And I know there are others who will be happy to join your working group. You really want to try to have at least 5 different branches in your working group. And I will assist you with that because I'm sure there are people in the DMV who would join the working group. Fannie Lou Hamer branch joining the working group. I think Southern Piedmont would also join the working group. And we already know Boston is a part of the working group. So I don't think it would be very hard for you to get to the minimum number of 5 as we have quorum. So are there any other hands up, George?
No. Darian put a comment in the chat, but there's nothing. Nobody has questions.
Would you please read Darian's comment?
The mission statement for this new subcommittee sounds very pertinent and appropriate because WILF US issue committee work is expected to be related to political work within the US. Your stated objectives sound like they're on the right track. I expect many WILFers are likely to be interested in this group.
And I do agree. So thank you, Darian, for that support. Now,
Amina.
Is there a hand up?
No, I was just reading the messages.
Well, George and I will read the messages. So, George, are there any other messages in the chat to be read other than Darian's? I don't see any other messages.
Oh,
George, are you there?
Yes, there are messages from before Darian's that are not related to this topic.
Well, we don't need to read those.
That's right.
So, are they related to the previous topic of women in conflict zones?
No, nothing on topic for the agenda.
Well, the chat will be saved by George. And I know Michael said he wanted to save the chat. You're welcome to save the chat for yourself, but the chat is always saved. And with the recording, it will be distributed to everyone in this meeting. And everyone who registered for this meeting will get the chat, the captions, and the recording. So there's no need to worry about saving it. George is excellent with doing that and putting it out generally within 24 hours. So George, please help me stay on track. Is the next item the issue of advancing human rights transition to new co-chairs?
The next one is reports on other working groups.
Oh, okay, thank you. Well, I will report on the 3 working groups. And actually, did Fatima show up?
Fatima's not here.
Well, that's too bad, because I will report on the 4 working groups, which are ending mass incarceration and the death penalty, housing justice, Border Migration Justice, and the UN Decade Reparations Working Group. Ending Mass Incarceration and the Death Penalty will meet again on April 7th. Our speaker will be Abe Bonowitz of Death Penalty Action. He will be speaking for 15 minutes on April 7th at 2 p.m., and we will have some discussion. So for the first 30 minutes, we do have a speaker. Housing Justice meets on the first Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. I believe that date will be April 9th. On that evening, I may be traveling. I will be traveling on April 7th, but I will not be traveling at the 2 p.m. time. So I will be at those two working group meetings as the convener, unless Julie decides to fire me. But for now, I plan to continue being the convener of those two working groups. Border Migration Justice, which is led by Adrian Bernal of the Metro Atlanta branch, and he has a class on Monday nights for the next few weeks. That's why he's not here tonight. So he did ask me to report that he's working on getting a speaker from the Georgia Latino Alliance for Human Rights, which is a huge Latino operation in Georgia that has a lot of power. And the speaker, I remember when she refused to speak English, and now she is quite fluent, and she hopes to join us on the third Sunday at 5 p.m. when the Border Migration Justice Working Group convenes. The UN Decade Reparations Working Group meets on the third Thursday at 6:30 p.m. And Fatina Perry Smith, who sometimes has a problem in showing up, and I will continue to support my sister, Fatima Perry Smith, who registered for this meeting, but she is not here. But that UN Decade Reparations Working Group meeting will be happening the third Thursday in April, and I will say no more. So are there any questions about the report of the long-standing working groups that have been in operation pretty much the whole time I've been AHR committee chair? Are there any questions or comments about my report? You have 2 minutes each to comment on the report.
Darian's hand is up.
Please recognize Darian for 2 minutes.
Thank you, and thank you for those reports, Teresa. I should have asked this question sooner, but it only now occurs to me. I didn't hear if, whatever the process is, if Julie is officially approved by the committee to recruit for her working group so that that can get its 5 members and get started.
Well, I think Julie is really probably already there with the 5 members. But of course, as working group convener and as hopefully the new chair of AHR, she can move that process. And I've already joined her working group, and I'm pretty sure there are members in the DMV who will join the working group. So I think she will get to her 5 branches very soon. She represents Boston, so that's 3 branches already. If you from Sacramento are willing to join, that would make 4. But I'm pretty sure George Friday, in her usual commitment to people of African descent, will join for the Southern Piedmont branch. So I don't think Julie has any concern with reaching quorum for the working group. Are
So-
there any other questions?
So we have said to her, go ahead. I just wanted to clarify that. And just now you.
Darian, you missed the last meeting, but the working group was approved at the February meeting, which is why I asked Julie to give her perspective on what it should be doing. It's already been approved. It was approved at the February meeting. You missed that meeting.
I did listen to the recording, but I did miss that approval. And just now you said Julie as the new chair, but Fatima is still running to be a co-chair?
Well, the fact that Fatima is not present says that she is not likely to be included, and that Julie will simply be the new chair. That's how I think it will happen, but we will get to that point, I think, as the next item, and people can say what they want to say, but my recommendation would be for Julie to simply be the new chair, and Fatima can continue to serve as a working group convener for the UN Decade Reparations. And I know Fatima, and I recruited Fatima, and Fatima is in the Fannie Lou Hamer branch, Louisiana, and I think I can safely say that Fatima will agree with me. George, since there are no other questions on the item of the reports, are there any other hands that you see? And can we move on to the AHR transition?
That's right, yes, please. There aren't any hands up. The next thing we have to do is, yeah. Oh, Sheila's hand just went up. Oh, it went down. And went up again.
Okay, my apologies. I did put something in the chat, so it's already there, so you can see it there.
Good.
So I won't take up time. Mm-hmm.
Well, I am so happy about your interest in women in conflict zones, because when I speak with Linda Lowe again about how we can move this in the U.S. section of WILF as part of the programming, because George Friday, as program committee chair, is committed to this. And I will never be on the national board, but I am the initiating organizer of women in conflict zones. So I reached out to World Beyond War to help host this. So I will continue to be a leader in women in conflict zones, working with my sister comrade George Friday, who is actually on the national board. And George Friday can decide how she wants to move this as a program if she does. So that's something that has to be discussed at the national board level, Sheila. What we're doing and what I'm doing is as the Southern Anti-Racism Network, and I just happen to be also a member of WILF. But this is not sponsored by WILF now. So it is something that George will have to figure out in her program committee chair position. And I hope that will be coming up at the meeting tomorrow night. So with no further ado, dear Darian and everyone, at the last meeting, we reached consensus on the nominees. And the way that we do consensus, George and I are kind of experts at this. Consensus we refer to in the way we do it as Roberta's Rules of Order. And you can look at any consensus document, and there are several questions that are asked when the question is posed. And the question that we are about to decide is on the issue of Julie Kabukani becoming the new AHR committee chair, we will ask, are there any blocking concerns? Because if there are any blocking concerns that we cannot overcome, we will not be able to go forward. If there are no blocking concerns, we will ask, are there any objections? If there are no objections, the third question will be, are there any stand asides? If there are no stand asides, we will ask the final question, is there any unreadiness? If there is no unreadiness, we will declare consensus and Julie Kabukani will be the new chair of the AHR. Are there any questions about the process? George, do you see any hands?
Yes, Darian.
Go right ahead, Darian. You have 2 minutes on this issue.
I am sorry, I should have put my hand down on questions because I raised my hand as having a blocking concern, but I can wait until we get to that.
Well, let's hear your blocking concern because we are there.
Okay, I think that based on what I saw of the last AHR meeting, we have more people at this meeting, which is wonderful. And I think this meeting should have the opportunity to consider, since obviously the candidates have changed, if there are others who wish to be considered for the position either of committee chair or committee co-chair. Thank you.
Well, it's a legitimate blocking concern, which we must overcome in order to go forward. And so this is how we do that. We ask, are there any other nominations for chair or co-chair? I will repeat that 3 times, beginning now. Are there any nominations for chair or co-chair of the AHR issue committee? George, help me watch for hands. And for the second time, I ask, are there any other nominations for chair or co-chair of the AHR issue committee? George, if there
There's
are
one
hands,
hand up. Amina Pilgrim.
Please state your preference, Amina.
Good evening again, everybody. I raised my hand to express interest in serving alongside Julie Kabukani, and I thought that Fatima would also be here, but in any case, I would be happy to serve if accepted. I would be happy to nominate my own self to serve as a co-chair or tri-chair of the committee. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Amina. In this case, it would be simply co-chair because Fatima has been withdrawn. So while we are accepting this nomination through the same process, let's make sure that when I ask the question for the third time, are there any other nominations other than Amina? And am I pronouncing it right? Is it Amina or is it Amina?
It's Amina. Thank you for asking.
Great. So Amina has nominated herself to serve as co-chair. And so that is the only nomination we have now, in addition to the nomination of Julie Kabukani. And I have asked for the third time if there are any other nominations. Well, if there are no other nominations, we're at the point of reaching consensus on the two nominees as co-chairs. So I will go through the same thing we did before when it was Julie only. Are there any blocking concerns about Amina and Julie serving as co-chairs of the AHR issue committee? George, do you see any hands with any additional blocking concerns?
Not at this point.
Well,
No.
are there any objections to the two nominees becoming the two new co-chairs?
Darian's hand is up.
What is your objection, Darian?
I have not heard from either Julie. Well, let me try again. I haven't heard from Julie if she's okay with the idea of being a co-chair with Amina. So I don't think we can vote on them being co-chairs without at least hearing that from Julie. Additionally, I haven't observed an opportunity in this meeting where people are being asked to consent. I haven't heard an opportunity for the two candidates to state their goals for the AHR committee, which I think is fundamental to any candidacy. We should have candidate
Darian,
statements.
George, please mute Darian. She's being disruptive. And I will accept her objection by letting Julie speak on any concerns she has about Amina. Amina has been in a conversation in the loop, and she put herself out weeks ago as a co-chair. And I said to her, you must attend the meetings. So let's have Julie take 2 minutes to introduce herself and her credentials, and let's have Amina introduce herself and her credentials, and both of them say whether or not they're willing to serve together. That is how we will proceed. So Julie, you have 2 minutes to introduce yourself. I know it's extensive, but name all the roles you play in WILF and name what your profession is in terms of who pays you. And so if you could take 2 minutes to do that, Julie, we will ask Amina to do the same thing. Her roles, other than being a member of the Boston branch, if she has any other roles in WILF, and if she accepts you as a co-chair. So beginning with Julie, you have 2 minutes.
So my name again is Julie Kabukani, and as who pays me, I am a registered nurse. I've been a nurse for 24 years, and I joined WILF in 2014. And within WILF, I have the roles of the U.S. representative at the International Advisory Board. I am the chair of the nominating committee, and I am a nominee for the AHR committee chair. So I absolutely support the nomination, the self-nomination of Dr. Amina Pilgrim, who I believe will be a great addition to our work in the AHR committee chair. For myself, I'm excited to support this collective of working groups. I bring with me a focus on equity, collaboration, and re-energizing our grassroots engagement. I look forward to learning from all of you if I am confirmed and co-creating bold action moving. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. And just to clarify, the nominating committee chair is a national board position. So Julie is actually
They always
Will you stop?
just
Mute yourself, whoever is talking. Uh, Julie is on the national board of the U.S. section, in addition to being on the advisory board representing the U.S. section for Wealth International, just to clarify. And so we will now hear from Amina for 2 minutes.
Thank you. And thank you, Julie, for your generous support of my offer and self-nomination. I'm very excited and honored to have the opportunity to work closely with you on behalf of people of African descent all over the world. So for my part, I see that Sister Angie actually shared my bio in the chat. But just to highlight a couple of things. As for who pays me, I am a professor at Berklee College of Music, where I teach in Africana Studies. I also teach courses online for UMass Boston and for Morehouse. And most of my work has been focusing on African American history, African American women, and Africa and the African diaspora. So my interest in the AHR committee stems from the little bit of research that I had done, and in particular, all of the subcommittees, border and migration justice, ending mass incarceration, racial justice, which is inactive, the two UN-related committees, as well as the new committee, that subcommittee that Julie has proposed. They all represent issues that are very dear to my heart. I thank my comrades, Michael Ippolito and Angie, for orienting me on some of the most recent work that's been done. But I'm excited to support in any way that I can and contribute my expertise with writing and research and organizing to advance the cause of WILF at large. So humbly, sharing this information and grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Amina. I believe that's 2 minutes. George, you should keep up with the time as well. But Amina, being co-chair is an activist position, not an academic one. I have no problem with academia, but this is a position that means you would co-chair this meeting on next at the end of April. You and Julie will figure out how to work together over the next month so that the two of you will be either working together as co-chairs for the AHR umbrella meeting, which is always the fourth Monday of the month at 8 p.m. If you should decide to change when that is, you would need to notify George in plenty of time in her role as program committee chair, because she keeps track of this. So I trust that you and Julie, because Julie is very familiar with the working groups and when the meetings are. So the two of you will work together, since you are new to the AHR committee. And in my recollection, this is actually your first AHR meeting, Amina. And so you have been embraced because of the openness that we will pursue in recognizing and respecting people of African descent. I am correct in my assumption that you are a person of African descent, Am I correct, Amina?
Yes, absolutely. And I heard your concern that it's an activist role. So just to reassure you, I do have about 25 years worth of experience in community organizing and leading community organizations and committees such as this. So I
Well,
still
Amina,
have a lot to
thank you.
learn, but I'm happy to learn it.
Oh, Amina, that says a lot. I am working towards my 60th year as a revolutionary organizer from 1966. So next year, I'll celebrate 60 years. So I do understand what it means to be who you are, and thank you. So we will begin the process of confirmation again.
Thank you as well. Thank you.
Okay, let's begin again. Uh, are there any blocking concerns to Amina and Julie becoming the new co-chairs of AHR? George, help me watch for hands. Are there any blocking concerns to the new co-chairs being confirmed? Are there any objections to the new co-chairs being confirmed? Are there any stand asides to the new co-chairs being confirmed? Is there any unreadiness of any kind to the new co-chairs being confirmed? George, are there any hands?
No. Woohoo!
Well, we can declare consensus. George and I do
Consensus.
this often, so we will declare consensus. So let's welcome our new co-chairs as we move for adjournment, and I will make that motion and say hallelujah. I feel the relief of the weight off my shoulders, and I am glad to congratulate the new co-chairs, and I will serve at your pleasure. So the meetings coming up in April that I announced for the two working groups I convene, I serve at your pleasure. So if you decide to remove me, I will respect that. So it is 9 p.m. and we have a hard stop. Good night, everyone. George, please save the chat. Stop the recording. We're done.
Good
Thank
night,
you.
everybody.
Good night.
Good night.